But my leader is being a bit vulnerable, sharing what they're doing. The team is also likely to be more resilient. Now, we know it's corporate land. We know that resilient teams, all the research is there to show that they outperform teams that aren't as resilient by phenomenal amount. So clearly there's a win-win. I think before in 2008, they didn't see that connection. When people were sent off with their little EAP cards or that they're not doing well, nobody admitted they weren't doing well. It's a bit like imposter syndrome. And I remember Sheryl Sandberg in Facebook, when she's in Google, she talked about imposter syndrome, about having it, which was great, sharing a bit of vulnerability. But I remember she was asked the question, what do you do about it? Which goes, will you even talk to it? Even by putting it out there, it doesn't have that hold on you. And I think it's the exact same thing that's happening with resilience now. There's a real sense of, let's use this to get resilience on the table and get it done. Everybody always mentions it. It's down the list somewhere in HR. It's always in the surveys. But this time around, we're actually addressing it. So what I'd like to just try to the panel, and anybody can answer who wants to, how is well-being being prioritized by the leadership teams within your organizations?
I think with the flexible working is probably going to be something that we're new to, unlike maybe Beth in her company that I think 2007 she said. So I'd love to talk to how that's gone for you, Beth, over that while. So I think there's huge gains for us to be made. And if you look, I think we do have very high energy in our company, but when I look at some of the other things, I think we've definitely got room for improvement in some of the other areas. So that obviously shows us a lot more resilience that can be built, which is really good for us as well. And I think as a country maybe as well, trying to normalize conversations that we couldn't have before, I definitely feel that that's happening. And I think you make a valid point there, Alan, about the EAP and the fact that we now have mental health champions. And I think the way, people talked, I think it was you, Jackie, there, about having training as first responders for all people managers on site. And that's what we're doing over the next 12 months as well. So that's definitely going to normalize it. And then we're being more courageous as a company to have these conversations and take them on.
Yeah. Love it, Pete. And those peer-to-peer conversations are a lot stronger than any other conversations. If your peer is trained to defuse and talk about which you're much more likely to open up with them. You're much more likely to learn from your peers, and actually, obviously, you're much more likely to be supported by them more effectively as well. Beth, were you going to come in there?
Yeah, I think just what's really sticking out for me when I'm listening to all you talk is that normalizing it. And I think that's really empowering, because normalizing it, all of us can do that. That's from just sharing, like you said, oh, I've had a really bad day, or sharing things about yourself. So I think sometimes we think they have to be these really expensive, big initiatives, or, start flexible working, and I've never thought about it. Really small things we do at HubSpot. We have this working with me document, and it just basically tells like who you are. How do you like to receive feedback? Yeah. What are your stressors? What does that look like in your behavior? Yeah. How do you like to communicate? What are the hours I shouldn't message you? How would you prefer me to communicate? And all these things, a lot of time when I do training, people be like, I just don't know how to deliver that feedback. And you're like, oh, did you ever ask the person? No, we're told to do that.
Yeah.
Allowing, that's such a simple tool. It's one word.
Yeah.
For our meetings with our managers, and then we what we'd like with our team. So small, inexpensive, and open up those conversations very early on, and we can support each other then as well.
When you stand back, it's never rocket science. It's always common sense what we all work in. The problem with it is, the minute we put on our work hats, this common sense goes out the window. I mean, most conflict is a misunderstanding of somebody else's intent, but we never actually look at that. People don't irritate you once you understand them. So having that me document, small but so powerful, the amount of conflict it probably skipped through just based on something so accessible and doable. And it's also a good reflection document. I love that idea.
If I can come in there, Alan.
Exactly,
yeah. I think what's great at the moment is resilience is one of the things that's at the top of the list now. I'm around a long time, and I can remember, we always talked about employee well-being in any organization that I worked in. But, it was something that HR did, and HR tried to influence all the line service leaders and all the leaders in the organization to take on board. It has changed. We now have managers and leaders coming and saying, can you help me build resilience with my team? Can you help me talk about well-being with my team? So the coin has turned, and I think that's fantastic. And that's what will drive it to be successful.
That's right. And now's the time to get in there. Now, and to the hard nose, because we might be preaching to the converted a little, but once they see the data, to Pete's point, on the difference it makes, not just in people's lives, but to performance, then they get very interested in the whole space. Absolutely.
Alan,
Yes.
just another quick thought. I think there are a lot of benefit, but you are also mitigating a lot of risks, because as you know, when our resilience is low, our energy is low, our mood gets negative, our mood gets the wrong place, and that impacts in the way we engage with people, the decisions we make. Another thing that we are doing in our place is instead of having the normal meetings, we are actually having meetings with just no agenda. We just have a whole team, and just the agenda is the team. So talk about how are you today? And as you say, some people are walking the dog, some people are at home with the children. It doesn't matter. It's just having a chat about us as people. It's about creating meaningful relationships rather than purely transactional relationships. And one thing that I talk to our leaders a lot about is we use our Net Promoter Score to measure how we engage and connect with customers. I get them to think about, if you look at your NPS with your colleagues, with your team, would they say that you are a transactional leader, or are you a leader that has a good NPS also on the relationship aspects? Because that builds trust, that builds loyalty, and to your point, that leads performance, and everybody is better.
And I think what you're doing there, Pedro, as well, brilliantly, deliberately, is getting to know each other outside of our job descriptions, creating that social sensitivity, which is the buzzword psychological safety. That's all it is. People complicate the space. I love listening to Beth about, and maybe it's in your company, it doesn't have the baggage, it doesn't have the steer, but it can get things right from the beginning. But at least it is, because prevention, especially with conflict, especially with mental health and well-being, it's a way better way to do it than try to fix it when something goes wrong.